If someone claimed to be from the year 2062, would you scoff at him or listen? In 2010, on a Japanese internet forum, an anonymous figure appeared. He claimed to come from the future and began posting a series of warnings. At first, no one believed him, but then the disasters started happening. One by one, his predictions came true. But the most terrifying part is this: his final warning, given in 2022, still hasn't happened. And according to him, 2025 marks the first major turning point in that prophecy. So what exactly was that warning? Let's find out in today's video. Before we open those doors together, hope you've been sleeping okay lately. It really matters. And if you're still with me, maybe hit like and subscribe. We're only getting started. In the fall of 2010, as online forums in Japan buzzed with familiar chatter, anime theories, political rants, everyday jokes, a peculiar post appeared on 2channel, the country's largest message board. It didn't beg for attention. It didn't even use proper grammar, but its content sent a ripple through the early hours of the morning. I come from the year 2062. The author claimed to be a time traveler, sent not by curiosity or scientific ambition, but by obligation. His mission, he insisted, was critical to the survival of the human race. He did not elaborate on who sent him or why, but the message ended with something stranger than the claim itself: a cryptic combination of symbols and phonetic characters, barely intelligible even to native Japanese speakers. And beneath that ciphered script, a single line that would become legendary: "This is advice for modern humanity." At the time, few took it seriously. After all, internet hoaxes were a dime a dozen. Most users scrolled past, laughing at the delusion or ignoring it altogether. Just another prank, just another lonely voice in the digital void. The decoded phrase, "run to the mountains," circulated quietly among a small group of curious users. They had labored over the odd string of symbols for days, sometimes weeks, applying amateur cryptography techniques, linguistic intuition, and trial and error. What they found was stark in its simplicity. No poetic flourish, no grand declaration, just an urgent imperative. But what did it mean? There was no context, no region, no time frame. The phrase floated in digital purgatory, too vague to act on, too strange to ignore entirely. Most who saw the translation regarded it as more absurd than the original post. Mountains? From what? When? Why? The warning faded. Then 4 months later, at 2:46 p.m. on March 11, 2011, the ground beneath Japan groaned and then broke. A violent magnitude 9.0 megathrust earthquake struck the Tohoku region, one of the most powerful seismic events ever recorded in human history. It tore through the ocean floor with the force of hundreds of atomic bombs, shifting the Earth's axis and shortening the planet's day by microseconds. But that wasn't the horror. The quake unleashed a wall of water, a tsunami over 40 meters high, that roared across the coast with unimaginable speed and weight. Fishing villages, cities, highways, lives, all obliterated. More than 18,000 people were killed or went missing. Entire towns were swallowed. Survivors spoke of black waves rising like monsters. Bodies were never found. As the nation plunged into grief and chaos, another wave surged, not of water, but of memory. On forums, in comment threads, across YouTube and Twitter, users began reposting the now forgotten phrase, "run to the mountains." The timing was too precise, the wording too uncanny. It hadn't been general. It hadn't said, "be cautious" or "prepare." It had said exactly what survivors of the tsunami wished they had done. What had once been a ridiculous anomaly in a fringe internet thread was now something far more disturbing. The eerie accuracy reframed everything. It no longer mattered whether he was really from the future. What mattered was that he knew, and he had tried to warn us. In July 2011, mere months after the Tohoku disaster had reduced coastal Japan to ruins, the user known only as 2062 returned. This time, he didn't post cryptic symbols. He didn't drop prophecies. Instead, he answered questions selectively, cautiously. Most queries centered on the March earthquake. Had he known? Why hadn't he said more? Was it a coincidence? He gave no direct answers, but before vanishing again, he left behind a single statement, brief but chilling in its confidence. "I will return in April 2016. A major event will occur." And then he disappeared again into silence. For 5 years, the internet watched and waited. Skepticism grew. The world moved on. But on April 14, 2016, seismic terror returned. A powerful earthquake struck Kumamoto, a historic region in southern Japan. Entire districts collapsed. Hundreds were injured. Power was lost. The tremors didn't stop. They repeated, intensifying in the days that followed. The country braced for another catastrophe. Then, as promised, on April 15th, 2062 came back. His reappearance was exact, 5 years to the day since his initial prediction. But this time, there were no explanations. He ignored every message, every plea, every demand for clarity. People begged for details. None came. He posted just one line: "I will return on May 17th," and then vanished again. Those who had been watching closely recognized the emerging pattern. If April 14th was the disaster, and April 15th was his return, then May 16th, the day before his next announced appearance, became a date to fear. They weren't wrong. On May 16th, 2016, a new earthquake struck Ibaraki Prefecture just northeast of Tokyo. Smaller than Kumamoto or Tohoku, but still damaging and unmistakably timed. 3 appearances, 3 earthquakes, all within 24 hours of his arrival. It no longer felt like coincidence. For many, it was the moment belief hardened into conviction. The warnings were real. The dates were exact. The man from 2062, whoever he truly was, seemed to be following a rhythm, not just of prediction, but of precision, and the world had begun to listen. Eventually, when the questions became impossible to ignore, he explained. Time travel, he claimed, was not a theory in the future. It was infrastructure. Humanity had not only mastered the ability to move forward through the timeline, but had also engineered a way to return. This was not public knowledge in his world, nor was it ever meant to be. The technology was tightly controlled, monitored with surgical precision by a secretive authoritarian body called the Temporal Management Bureau. 2 devices made this possible. The first, known as the Vicious 5000, enabled travel forward in time, essentially accelerating one's presence along the linear thread of history. The second, more dangerous machine, was the Plus-Nec 6290, a reverse engineering of time itself, designed to send its user backward into a point in the past. But owning or operating these machines was not a casual endeavor. They were not available to civilians. All operations were sanctioned, regulated, and logged by the Bureau, whose sole purpose was to protect the continuity of the timeline. He spoke of the laws that governed all temporal movement, rigid, immutable, and enforced with merciless efficiency. Travelers were forbidden to reveal future events that could alter historical outcomes. They could not interfere with incidents that shaped cause and effect. And above all, they were never to exploit knowledge of the future for personal or political gain. The punishment for violating any of these principles was absolute. Erasure. Not death, not prison. Total removal from the timeline, as if the individual had never existed. According to 2062, time was not merely a neutral backdrop. It was conscious in a way humanity barely understood, a self-regulating system. When a breach threatened its stability, it responded automatically by eliminating the threat. That was why he could never stay long. Every time he appeared in the past, he was bound to a strictly limited window, minutes, sometimes hours. To remain longer was to risk setting off the mechanism. His disappearances were not evasions. They were compliance, because to linger was to vanish. And even the future cannot protect someone once time decides they don't belong. When pressed to reveal the true dangers that lay ahead, he didn't hesitate. According to 2062, a third world war is inevitable, and it will break out before the year 2030. But unlike the wars of the past, this one would not be sparked by a single assassination or missile. It would be the product of decades of buried hostility, a pressure cooker of resentment between 2 unnamed Asian nations, left unresolved for too long. He never named them. He wouldn't. But he said the war wouldn't stay contained. Once the spark ignited, Asia would be the first to burn. From there, the flames would leap across the globe, to the United States, to Russia, across the Middle East, and into the fractured seams of Europe. Like a slow-motion chain reaction, every unresolved conflict, every political powder keg, would detonate one by one, and it wouldn't be nuclear. He made that clear. The terror of this war would come not from mushroom clouds, but from something far more insidious: chemical weapons, engineered toxins, invisible agents, airborne and undetectable. Death would arrive not in explosions, but in breath. Victims wouldn't vanish in a flash. They would suffer slowly, violently, choking on the air around them. According to him, the devastation would surpass that of Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined. Not in scale, but in saturation. Cities would not be bombed, they would rot from the inside. Entire populations would be incapacitated before even realizing what had happened. And for Japan, the price would be unbearable. He described a future where Japan is almost entirely erased, not by invasion, but by abandonment. Major urban centers would collapse, either from attack or evacuation. Infrastructure would fail. Landscapes once filled with temples, towers, and neon lights would become silent wastelands. What remained of the population would flee by sea, by air, by foot, seeking shelter in neighboring nations or nowhere at all. The country would become a graveyard with no mourners, a sea of ruins inhabited only by memory. The land of the rising sun would no longer rise, not because of what it did, but because of what it could never stop. And then, he was gone. After years of cryptic appearances, pinpoint warnings, and chilling precision, 2062 vanished completely from the digital world. No new posts, no final farewell, just a void where the voice from the future had once echoed. But before his disappearance, he left behind two final coded messages, his last attempt perhaps to prepare those still willing to listen. The first was a specific warning, encoded and later deciphered by a community that had grown adept at interpreting his riddles. On July 4, 2025, a major earthquake will occur off the coast of Japan. The date and the wording bore a disturbing resemblance to a scene from an obscure prophetic manga that had circulated online years before, a story many had dismissed as fiction until now. The alignment was too close, too clean, and it suggested something unthinkable, that the future he came from might be repeating itself through whispers, fragments, and forgotten pages of fiction. His second message was even more ominous. In 2024, a major event will occur. No details, no locations, just a shadow of forewarning. Now, standing deep in 2025, we look back at the year he named with unease. 2024 shattered heat records, becoming the hottest year in human history. Typhoon Yagi tore through Asia. Hurricane Milton devastated the U.S. eastern seaboard. Flash floods in Afghanistan left thousands homeless, dozens dead. Droughts crippled agriculture. Ecosystems failed. Disasters unfolded like dominoes, and yet, was that it? Among these cascading catastrophes, which was the event he meant? Was it the climate's breaking point? The start of something geopolitical we haven't yet seen unfold? Or more terrifying still, has the true event not yet arrived? He appeared, he warned, and he vanished, always just before something broke. Now, his final message hangs over us like a silent countdown. July 4th, 2025. We've already watched his words echo through disaster. But what if the most devastating prophecy is the one that hasn't happened yet? You don't have to believe in time travel, but maybe belief was never the point. What matters is what we choose to see and what we choose to ignore. If you're ready to keep uncovering what history forgot and the future refuses to reveal, subscribe. The next warning may already be here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.